All right, folks. This is episode 2 of Basement Banter. I've got Big JT here with me. If you guys don't know who that is, that's Jimmy Tyndall. Jimmy runs one of the local barbecue shops here in town, located at 5 Points. I've known Jimmy for probably a good 15 to 20 years. Heck of a cook. Was an awesome professional wrestler at one point. And I'm going to let him tell you his story and how he got involved. Jimmy, you want to start off? You want to tell us the address of your restaurant?
So, yeah, we are at 300 Hope Avenue over there in East Columbus by the Tech Center and by the Boys and Girls Club.
5 Points to you people here in Columbus. So, your restaurant, it's all barbecue based, right?
Yeah, we don't have any fryers, we don't do burgers, we don't do tenderloins, strictly barbecue, trying to stay traditional to the way of barbecue.
And each day, do you guys have a particular item or anything like that? I know, I seen one day you guys had sausage. It was
so yeah, we do a daily special that rotates with each day. So Mondays we do burn-ins, Tuesdays smoked chicken wings, Wednesdays are jalapeno cheddar beef sausages. Thursday we just added in half chickens because we moved turkey to the full-time menu. And then Fridays we do ribs.
Cool. Now everything sauce-wise and rubs and etc. That's all you, right?
Right. Those are all my recipes we've used when we were competing. Stuff I've come up with, lately. I just brought you the first couple go rounds of two new sauces and a new rubs for you to try. So
definitely appreciate that. It'll be delicious on some ribs. So when you got into barbecue, I know you started with barbecue after wrestling. How did you get into it?
So actually, I started in 2009. As you remember, my dad passed away pretty unexpectedly. And barbecue everything, and that was kind of his passion. He loved to cook. He, loved to do anything with that, and when I was looking for a way to kind of deal with his passing, and kind of carry on a legacy for him, he was also a football coach. Well, I didn't have the time or patience to do that at that point.
Right.
So I was like, you know what? He loved barbecue. I'm going to just try and dive into that and see what I can do. Started with it in, summer of 2009. And then just made a whole lot of bad barbecue that summer. And found out that there's competition barbecue. And, there's not a whole lot for a fat, middle-aged guy other than bowling and softball.
Yeah.
So we jumped into competition barbecue and we got a first place at our very first contest. And
nice.
The hook was kind of set. We won the brisket category at Madison that year. We did another contest a couple months later. Didn't do that well at that one, but it was, kind of 40 degrees and raining the whole time,
right.
And we just didn't have the equipment to do that. We just kind of ran with it. So since 2009, I've just been,
And when you started out, is it a pellet smoker or?
So when I first started, we used what's called ugly drum smokers. It's a 55-gallon drum that cooks vertical with your charcoal and the wood in the bottom. And then I kind of progressed from those to Old Hickory CTO, which is kind of an automatic set it and forget it style. Sold that and bought a Jambo pit, which is kind of the Cadillac of
right.
offset cookers, and that's what we had the most success with while we were competing. Now at the restaurant, we use two Fast Eddie Cook Shacks. It's the 120 models. And then we have an offset wood burning pit from Texas we have out front. And then I just recently purchased another Old Hickory.
Oh, nice.
To get into doing some vending next year, Rib Fest, stuff like that.
And I know the store there at 5 Points. Do you guys cook all there, or do you cook some at home and bring it in? Or
no, we cook everything there at the shop. You know, health codes, you know, stuff like that. You have to make sure it's all done there. Hell, I don't even have, you know, I got a grill at home. That's all I have. I don't have a pit anymore at the house. Everything's there at the restaurant. But no, like, we just cook there, and we cook fresh every day, and, you know, we hate to sell out, but sometimes it happens.
Right.
You know, we can't control when we
That's
put
good
meat
and
on.
bad.
Yeah. You know, I hate telling people we're sold out,
Right.
but that means we're not serving leftover food, you know. Some
Yep.
places, you know, they'll do that, but we try to cook fresh every day.
And my understanding, you qualified for the Nationals, right?
So yeah, a few years back, we've won several competitions in competition barbecue, and we qualified for the American Royal Invitational in Kansas City. And we went to, it was held at Arrowhead Stadium that year that we went. Like 500 and some teams. I don't know the exact number. But we had a mediocre invitational cook where the invitational you have to win to get invited, and only people that win grand champions can go and cook. So there's only like 120 teams in that one. The next day at the Open, you know, anybody can cook the Open. You could get a couple guys and go just, hey, we're going to go cook, and go cook. We did that, 500 and some teams, and, you know, you think you do a good job, you think you have a good product, but it's really, with that many teams, that many judges, you just don't know. Like,
Right.
you know, some of the best teams in the country go there, and you don't hear your name called because they only, you know, there's only so many spots. You know, they only call the top 10 or 20. So we are sitting there, and it's been, you know, they've been through chicken and ribs and pork, and they're getting through brisket, and you know, there's a bunch of other teams there that their names start with big, because our team name was Big JT's Smoking Barbecue.
Right.
So you kind of get, you know, there for a while, they're like big, you know, whatever, and you're like, oh, maybe that's us. No, it's not. So then you know, you just kind of zone out. So they're calling brisket. They get to the top 10, and we had a really good brisket. Like, it was awesome. My buddy Kempis that cooked with me, he went and turned it in, and he come back, and he was just all smiling. He's like, man, that's the best brisket box we've ever put together. That thing was perfect. And I've got video of it where he says that thing was perfect. So, you know, I'm zoning out playing like War Robots or something on my phone, you know, because we haven't got a call yet, you know. And they get to second place, or third place, whoever they called. I think it was Rooftop Barbecue, with a 180, which is a perfect score. And I was like, holy cow, you know, the top 4 had perfect scores. So they got third with, you know, that. So they call second, and they say Big JT's Smoking Barbecue, and I'm sitting there, and my buddy Bill from Thunderhog Barbecue, who has a sandwich named after him at the restaurant, the Thunderhog, he was sitting behind me. He was like, he hit me on the back. He was like, man, that's you. And I'm like, what? And everybody's like, hey, you congrats, you know. And it was just like shock. It took just to realize. And then you get down there and you find out you cooked a perfect brisket, tied for first place. Worst part about the tie is you go from, you know, a red ribbon and like $1,000 to a really nice brass crown trophy and like $2,000. I don't know what the prize money doesn't care. I wanted the trophy.
Right.
But, you know, just to have that accomplishment, you know, like that feather in my cap, that's awesome that we were able to do that.
You know your dad's smiling.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because not many people can say they can do competition barbecue, let alone, you know, win, you know, or tie for first place.
Yeah.
So that's pretty incredible. So when you go, you said you had your buddy with you. How many people does it take normally to run a team?
So you can do it with one person, but you're going to be busy, you know, because you can trim and do all of your, like, make your rubs, sauces, injections beforehand, which we would try and do. But we found that, like, me and Kempis and then Lisa, which is my wife, fiance. We've been together forever.
Yeah.
And then my mom would go. It's like, especially to the Royal, because we'd take a week and just go.
Right.
Go do 5 or 6 different barbecue restaurants, and then like the Royal's just a big family reunion. You see all your buddies from across the nation that you only see at the Royal. You can do it with. We found like 2 to 3 people works the best. It's just a heck of a time.
So it's like a brotherhood.
Oh,
It's competition, but
the thing about it, yes, it's competition. But if you came to me and said, "Man, I forgot my rub, or I forgot my sauce, I forgot my injection, or whatever," and I had it, I'm going to give it to you.
Right.
I had a guy, Darren Worth from Iowa Smoky D's, one of the best cooks in the country. He's the GOAT. We were at a competition in Missouri, 2-day competition. Day 1, we had a perfect chicken and a perfect rib. Our pork finished like top 10. So we were like first, top 10 pork. And then our brisket just bombed. I don't know what happened to it. It just bombed. So at the end of it, he comes up to me and he goes, "Man, what happened?" I was like, "Man, I don't know." He's like, "Are you cooking Snake River?" I was like, "No, we got a prime." He's like, "Hold on, follow me." So I go over to his trailer, and he hands me a Snake River Farms brisket, Wagyu brisket, and says, "Beat me with it tomorrow." That's a $200 piece of meat that he just hands me.
Right.
That's just the kind of people that, that's just, barbecue.
That's awesome. I know I took your suggestion. I went to Nashville, and I've ate there now probably 3 or 4 times at Peg Leg Porker.
Yeah.
That place is phenomenal. Man, I tried something different each time. Everything's been awesome.
Yeah, another good place is Martin's down there, the original Martin's. They got a few, like there's 2 in Louisville, but the original one's the best, I think.
In Nashville?
Yeah.
They got them deep fried pies there at Peg Leg Porker with the ice cream. Killer. I think me and Oldham had a couple of pieces. Is there any particular item that you yourself enjoy the most?
Honestly, brisket. Like, it's the hardest to cook. Like, it gave us the most trouble when we were first learning how to cook it. I said we won with it at our very first competition. I have no clue what we did to it. Like, looking back at pictures now, I'm like, holy cow, how did that do anything?
Yeah.
But it's been one of those that, you can go as complicated as you want, or you can go, Texas salt, pepper, and just smoke. And honestly, that's the best. Like, at the restaurant, we offer it lean or moist, which means more or less fat. There's 2 muscles. To a brisket, the lean comes off of the flat, and the moist comes from the point where you get burnt ends from as well. But my favorite slice is right there from the middle of that moist. You get a little bit of lean and then a little bit of fat. It's probably one of the best things ever. That or the sausage.
Yeah.
We do a cheddar jalapeno that's really out of this world.
I love burnt ends. I remember, I can't remember the name of the restaurant. It's used to be in town. It was over by Total Tan.
It's TC's.
TC's Memphis Barbecue. I always enjoyed going over there and getting burnt ends.
Yeah, he actually, funny story, when I started cooking, his location had moved over to 25th Street, there where Greeks is at now.
Yeah, the old Blimp.
And I went in there one day and I was like, "Hey, help me learn how to cook barbecue." And Tom, we're friends to this day. He kind of took me under his wing, and he didn't tell me everything, but he told me, like, he guided me in the direction, because I think if I tell you how to do something, you can learn how to do it. But if you say, "Hey, why don't you try this and this, come back, tell me what happened." And I cook a brisket, and I'm like, "Okay, so it was like this." And you're like, "Well, okay, now try and let it go for another 30 minutes, an hour, whatever." I'm learning, like, how to see what's going on. And that's what he did with me, and it really helped out the learning curve, and just the knowledge of cooking.
Yeah, visual.
Yeah,
because a lot's got to do with color and things of that nature.
Color and now I've cooked enough briskets and everything that I can pretty much pick one up and tell you by the way it feels, or the way it the way it doesn't feel if it's done, if it's ready to go, Same thing with like ribs and stuff. So yeah, it's a lot of hands-on learning, touch, sight, smell.
Expensive hobby.
Yeah.
So outside of the restaurant, you also do catering, correct?
Yep, we do catering, weddings, whatever parties, whatever you need, just we can do it.
And recently catered for a NASCAR team during the Brickyard weekend.
Yeah, we were up. It was JD Motorsports. Got the call and got to go hang out with them for the weekend and feed four of the teams there, 4 cars of, and then watch the race from the pit boxes and,
that's awesome.
All that. So that was really cool.
That's something that not many people get to do is be down there on pit road, especially watching the race.
Yeah.
So
well, and, they want us next year as well. So, we're hoping to make it a yearly deal where we can go around and if they're close, go cook for them and, just super nice people. And, you never really know what goes into what they do until you see it from behind the scenes. And, it was crazy.
Yeah, so many people think it's just some hillbilly behind the wheel,
yeah.
Turning 200 mile an hour, but there's so much between working on engines and getting tires and, pit crews. And, there's way more to race than what people ever realize.
Yeah.
And there's several races, too, that's around here. So you never know how many times you may get the call.
Right.
And you never know. You might spread the word. Next thing you know, you might have 10 teams.
Right.
So it's pretty awesome. We'll shift over to the wrestling aspect from the barbecue. When I met you, you were wrestling. I'm not sure. I know you were wrestling SCW, I think HPW, and maybe some Shelbyville. How long did you wrestle prior to the barbecue?
I think I started wrestling in like 1998 or 99. I was probably a junior in high school, probably sophomore, somewhere in there. I know I did my senior project was learn how to be a professional wrestler, but I had already been trained and doing, trained and doing it. That was a blast. That was one of those things that, you knew Dad and Mom, and they hated wrestling. So, but my Uncle Jeff, he kind of brought, he loved it and kind of, helped foster that in my early age. And, I remember going to his house and watching like pay-per-views and
WrestleMania.
Getting so mad at, it was Steve Austin and Brian Pillman, the Hollywood Blondes. I would get so mad because they were beating up the Patriot and Marcus Bagwell,
Oh, yeah.
And I was getting so
males.
mad, yeah.
So when you started wrestling, where did you train? You trained local? Did you go someplace in particular? Or?
So yeah, I trained with the guys there at Hoosier Pro when they did it once a month, but you can't learn how to be a wrestler by doing it once a month. So I hooked up with Chris Caliber, Chris Blaze, and a couple other guys, and we started traveling and wrestling, and that eventually caused a fallout with me and the HPW guys because I wanted to go learn and wrestle and do that, and they didn't want me to do that. Apparently, they wanted me to be
kind of like signed, but not signed type thing.
I don't know. It's
isolated
independent wrestling, yeah. So
I remember you and Chris were tagging for a while. I remember going to Madison several times and seeing you guys. You were wrestling under Damian Devine. I think he was Chris Caliber at the time.
We were the Fallen was our tag team name.
Yeah. And see, Draven was, well, he was wrestling under Draven. He was kind of doing the Sting / Crow gimmick. I don't know if he's still doing that or not. It's been quite a while since I've been to a wrestling show.
I haven't been to one in 8 or 9 years, honestly.
I don't think he runs out of the place in Madison anymore. I think he uses the school.
Okay, yeah. I think so, yeah. Up there on top of the hill.
So, going back, talking about Bubba, your uncle, and, him watching wrestling and getting pay-per-views, et cetera, et cetera. What would you say your favorite match of all time is?
Oh, I don't know. There's just so many of them. There's so many significant moments, like growing up, that you're like, that you have, implanted. Like, I could go with the easy one and say, like, Macho and Steamboat.
Right.
Or, I just don't know. Like, there's significant moments, like when Jake Roberts brought the Cobra out and then attacked Macho, and, just all of those, kind of the hokey stuff from the early 90s with WWE.
Gimmicks.
Just...
Mantar.
Right, Shawn Michaels throwing Brutus through the barbershop or Marty Jannetty through the barbershop window, and just, that stuff sticks out more than any matches.
Right.
I was watching on YouTube last night. It was one of those things where the Three Faces of Foley, had, I think it was leading up to the street fight with Cactus Jack and Triple H at the Royal Rumble there in, I think, Madison Square Garden.
Yeah. It
So it'd been like 90...
retirement match if he lost.
Yeah, I think so. And he ended up going into the tax. But, it was like... He appeared as like Dude Love and was like, I'm not crazy enough. And then Mankind. And then that's when Cactus Jack debuted. And, Triple H just oversold the fact that Cactus Jack was a crazy son of a bitch, and just...
Oh, yeah.
Just, like I said, stuff like that is what I remember more than matches.
Mick Foley going off the Hell in a Cell.
Yeah. And then, a lot of the stuff I liked, I couldn't even tell you what they were, but I remember back when Raw was running head-to-head, obviously, with Nitro.
Oh, yeah.
But then Nitro started like an hour earlier. And then right whenever Raw was getting ready to come on, they'd always put, like, Jericho and Dean Malenko or Rey Mysterio and Psychosis, like those cruiserweights that could just flat out go.
Technical.
And, like, I was hooked into that. Like, I didn't want to flip it over and watch 10 minutes worth of promo on Raw when, you got Malenko and Jericho going at it,
Right. And, you look at it and it's like, I used to watch it religiously. Like, I never missed an episode. If I did, it was recorded. I watched it when I got home from work. And it's now to the point where I get the update on YouTube. You know what I mean? Like, there'll be some episodes, like, I've watched AEW just because it's a new product. And, I want to see what those guys are doing. It's fresh faces.
I think the last match that I sat down and watched was I got the AEW pay-per-view where it was Cody versus Dustin.
Fantastic.
That's honestly the last match that I sat and watched the entire... I watched just that match. Like, I didn't watch... I watched bits and pieces of everything else, but I was focused on that match, and it was amazing.
Yeah. Like, most of the time, even pay-per-views, I can't sit through a whole match without picking my phone up and playing a game or, Facebook or whatever I'm doing. But that match, from the start to the finish... it had you. You know what I mean? And they didn't really have that big of a story build up either. That's what's amazing about it. Like you seen back in the 80s, early 90s, where they built a feud for months.
Yeah. But that story's always been there. It's always,
right.
It's always been older brother, younger brother. I mean, that just plays out no matter what.
Yeah. Brett and Owen. Stuff like that. I really hope AEW makes it. I know the financial backing's there, but obviously viewership and stuff like that's got to fall into place. Because I think WWE definitely has the talent.
They're global. They're,
right.
They can sign people just to sign people just so they can't get them.
Right.
That was probably the hardest thing with AEW. When I tried to watch the other stuff, I didn't know who anybody was.
Yeah.
Like, I knew the Young Bucks,
right?
But I've never really watched them before. But I've heard of them,
right?
It's like they
Kenny
have
Omega.
to get people. Yeah, I've heard of him, but I've never really watched much of his work. So they're gonna have a hard time drawing in a casual fan.
Right.
Like there was a couple tag matches. I'm like, I don't know anybody in there.
Yeah.
I have no clue. It's hard to get emotionally attached to something when you don't know the, it's just like watching a movie. You could watch a, like a B film.
Right.
If it has somebody, like an older star that's trying to reinvigorate their, like you can be like, oh, I've seen him in movies, but he's good.
Right.
But if it's a, like a B horror movie that you have no clue who anything, you're just like, whatever.
Yeah. And how do you build, these guys? I mean, unless you're a diehard indie fan, which a lot of these guys are, they sign up from the indies. And I respect that because, like, when I went and watched you guys, after the show, a lot of times, me and you would go eat pizza or whatever, Madison, and different things. And just to see how much work a 10, 12-minute match was, how much up and down and, bumps, bruises, everything like that. So I know, they bust their butt all the time. Some of them guys wrestle for $20, $25. Yeah.
If not more,
if not less, just for,
hot dog and a handshake,
yeah, experience, and seeing, them guys actually get contracts and stuff. And,
right.
One thing that stood out to me was when Cody Rhodes wrestled Darby Allin.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea who Darby Allin was. And then I watched a show on Vice. It's called Dark Side of the Ring.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another show they do as well. And one of those shows, they did a thing on him. He was like, I guess, a professional skateboarder or semi-professional. And they would do stuff, and if they didn't, hit the move or whoever, didn't ollie the farthest or whatever, I don't know much about skateboarding, they would mace him. And they literally maced him, right? I'm like, this guy's nuts.
Yeah.
And then I see him go in, and they talk about how he's a wrestler. And I see him go in there with Cody Rhodes. Granted, Cody's, kind of like Jericho or Bret Hart. He can carry a match. I mean, you could put him in there with a broomstick, and you'd probably be, happy with it. But seeing Darby, jump off the top rope onto the apron like he did, I was like, my God, this guy's crazy. But they put on one heck of a match. And I'll never forget who Darby Allin is now. So I'm definitely happy about that. But, yeah, they've definitely got to, push those names and, build that crowd.
Yeah.
So back to when you were wrestling, do you have a particular match that was your favorite?
So I got a couple. It's hard to really, nail one down, but it really involves the same group of guys. There was one we did, I think it was like a Night for Billy at the Hope Gym.
That was Chris's brother, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it was me and Ali Vaez, who was, I don't even remember what his gimmick, he was, Middle Eastern, Iraqi, It was me and him versus Chris and Rob Conway in a tag match.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just one of those things. We didn't talk much before.
Mm-hmm.
We just kind of, in the ring, we knew kind of what we wanted to do. Mm-hmm. It was one of the easiest matches, ever. And I attribute that to, like, a couple other matches I had with me and Chris tagging up as the Fallen versus Jack Black, Vito Andretti, the Fat and the Furious.
Yep.
They were both products of Danny Davis, Rip Rogers, OVW. Mm-hmm. Jack was under developmental contract for a while. They helped train, like, they were in the same, mm-hmm. training classes as, like, Batista, John Cena, all of that.
Conway was as well, wasn't he?
I think he was teaching it. Him and Dinsmore were probably teaching
it. Oh, yeah.
Dinsmore,
yeah. Okay.
But working with Jack and Vito, mm-hmm. like, we actually learned how to work a match. Not just go out there and do a bunch of moves and hope people reacted,
Right.
We were down working for, I think, CCW in Louisville. And again, it was... I think it was me and Chris and Ali versus Jack and Vito and somebody else. And we had to get a police escort to the ring because some drunk guy down there had one of them, like, 11-inch screwdrivers, that was going to shank Ali because he came out to the call to prayer.
Oh, yeah.
And we're in the middle of downtown Louisville with like 4,000 people around us.
Yeah.
Probably not the smartest thing ever to do.
Mm-hmm.
But we did a street fight there. I ended up
tearing up my shoulder pretty bad. I don't know if you remember when I had that real bad shoulder injury.
I do.
I was out for like 8 or 9 months, but so we had that, and then I would have to say favorite match only because it was the only time my dad ever came to watch it. Was after it was the first match after that shoulder injury. It was me and Andy or Chris versus Jack and Vito at the Columbus North for Rice PW with like Barbarian.
I remember that show.
Ming,
there.
Buff Bagwell, Lex Luger. He had a whole bunch of big name talent there. Yeah. And we went out there and just killed it, lights out, you know, like I think Buff was watching from the door and we come back and he was like, man, that was killer, you know. But I think that one, just because Dad was there, that was one of the only ones that I think it was the only one that he ever came to. So,
yeah, I like the Rice PW shows. I don't know if he just spent too much too quick or what happened there, but I can imagine it was cheap getting Luger and all them guys in at once, you know. Because I know he won at East, and you said
one at
North, and then he did one up at the Fairgrounds as well, I think. And
I think that's when it all imploded
crumbled,
on him or something.
Because Jim Cornette laid into him.
Yeah.
Which, if you never listened to any of his rants, I don't agree with him or not agree with him. I can't say I agree with him on everything. I can't really say I agree with him much, but they're absolutely hilarious. Yeah. So, yeah, I think I'd say if I had to choose favorite match, recent would probably be Ric Flair, Shawn Michaels, Flair's retirement match, which I wish Flair would have never went to TNA and wrestled, and God knows what it was.
Right.
It was awful, but that was another one where there was that build up for months and months and months where if he lost, he was done, you know.
Yeah.
And then, you know, Vince put him in there with his best friend, you know, and Shawn's mentor, etc., you know, and
well, so, it all goes back to emotion. Like,
yeah.
At the end of it, when Shawn looks at him, you know, and Flair's telling him to come on, and Shawn's like, I'm sorry, I love you. Like, you know, real or not, and I hate using the word fake because it's not but
fake, right?
Just that emotional grab, you're like, shit, that was rough, you know.
Yeah.
That's like putting down your dog, like, I'm sorry.
Exactly.
But,
that's exactly the way I seen it. And then you see Flair laying there, and he's like crying, you know, and everybody's standing, and then the night after was
crazy,
phenomenal when they brought out all those guys, Harley Race and Greg Valentine, and you know all the Horsemen, and you know just all those people, you know, Batista and guys that he mentored. You know, it was awesome. If I had to go back prior to that, I'd say, you know, obviously Hogan and Andre. Just
well, I think that kind of
atmosphere.
that kind of was what jump started everything. You know, Hogan, you know, kind of passing the torch to, you know, or Andre passing the torch to him, and then, you know, the Machine getting behind Hogan, which kind of started everything, you know.
Yeah. I don't know if you've ever listened to Steve Austin's podcast, but he had Hogan on there, and he was talking about him and Andre and the appreciation, you know, because he said if Andre didn't like you, he wasn't going to do it. I mean, you know, wasn't nobody going to make him do it. He was huge, but he put him over so well, and he said that people didn't realize the amount of pain that Andre was in at the time. Like, he could hardly walk.
I could only imagine, you know, being that big and then being wrestling and doing all that. Like, I don't know how he would do it. Like, that's just crazy.
And I remember towards the end where he was coming out with, they weren't crutches, but they were the things that go on the wrist, you know. And it was like, man, this guy's dedication, you know, because, I mean, he's big. It's probably hard for him to get places, and then his mobility was going out.
Could you imagine trying to fly, like, you know, even first class? Like, that's, you know, that's crazy big. Like, the world's largest, you know, athlete. I mean, I don't know if he still is, you know, but, you know, there's some big guys out there, you know, like
Big Show, and then like Braun Strowman,
Mm-hmm.
Guys like that. Those guys are just monsters.
You look at them guys and you look at Andre. Like Andre was like an ogre, man. He was like, he wasn't a belly. He was like the same width from his head down to his toes. It was just unbelievable. Like just watching him, it's like, my goodness, That's man. I remember a reference to Joe Rogan's podcast. He did one with Jake Roberts here like a couple months ago, and he's talking about when he first started out and he was refereeing. I think it was his dad's promotion or something, and he was training, learning stuff like that. And they said, "All right, Jake, you're going to go to the airport. You're going to pick up Andre." So they got some van and had all the seats out, and they just set him in the back. And he said Andre made him stop for beer, and he drank like 2 cases of beer before they got to like wherever they were going, and it was like an hour distance.
Yeah, but I'm sure beer cans in his hands are like those little mini, mini Cokes that you can get now. Like, that's crazy. Like, I just can't. Like, that's one person I wish I could have seen live. Just like, you can see pictures, you can see,
right.
Like when that video where he's like grabbing Mean Gene and and you look at him, you're like, that's a huge guy.
Yeah.
But just to really, you can only get so much from a picture or a video. Like if you can see him live, that's just.
Yeah, I never got to see him live. I did get to see Hogan a couple times. I don't think I ever got to see Hogan while he was in WWE, but back when Nitro, they were traveling and stuff, I got to see him in Indy a couple times. This fine shirt that I have on here, this actually came from Hogan's Beach Shop in Orlando.
Okay.
Last vacation that we took, we went to Disney and some other places, and they asked me the one place I wanted to go, and I said Hogan's Beach Shop.
You have to.
Yeah, and I actually got to hold the belt that he won from Andre at WrestleMania 3, and I did not realize how heavy those belts are. I mean, it was insane.
Was that the one before they went to the Winged Eagle, like the old... Yeah.
Yep. And I think I may have the picture still saved on my phone or something, but yeah. Excuse me, I've been fighting a cold. Do you still follow any of the indie scene, or?
Not really. Like, I was involved with Emerge Wrestling there for a little bit. I kind of keep up with what they're doing just because I think what they're doing is a step in the right direction for local kind of stuff. But other than that, it's one of those deals where as your interests change, like your Facebook friends change, and so like I don't have very many wrestling posts showing up on my Facebook. It's more barbecue and stuff like that. But I try and keep up with them and kind of what Chris is doing. Just keep an eye on that. There's a couple other guys that are newer, but I think just have a huge potential. I don't know if you've heard of him. I think his name's like Cole Radrick.
Yes.
Like, just from what I've seen of him, like at Emerge, and then what I've seen lately on, like, the internet, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just got a bunch of potential, and I don't think letting his size, I don't think that's going to hold him back. So.
Yeah, I like in the '80s. I think a lot of guys got signed because of their size. What I mean?
You look at them. There was like Haystacks Calhoun, who was just a fat guy in overalls. Not taking anything away from him, but you could just be a fat guy in overalls,
right? And
you were a pro wrestler,
Yeah. Well, and it's, you don't want to compare it to like a circus freak show, but it's like if you see this monstrous guy on a poster, you're like, man, I want to see what this guy does.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, Vader was probably half the size of Haystacks Calhoun, but Vader was a monster. But when you see him get up there and do a moonsault, you're like, whoa.
He was probably one of him and Boss Man, like, growing up. Obviously Hogan. And I hated Flair because you were supposed to, but, Vader with the Mastodon mask that shot out the smoke or steam. I mean, that was just awesome.
Yeah. And watching New Japan matches with him and Stan Hansen and how they would just beat the brakes off each other.
Pops his eye back in the socket.
Keep it going. Jesus. Well, we could talk all day about wrestling, that's for sure. You got anything else big going on? Any competitions you're going to or anything?
No, not really. We haven't really done too much competing since, we opened the first restaurant I had up in Franklin, which we closed down to open this one. Really haven't had the time to compete much or anything. I'm hoping with that new rotisserie smoker I bought, maybe not compete, but get to some competitions as a vendor. So at least I can see some of the guys, we used to hang out with.
Oh, yeah.
All that. But no, not really. Like, we're just kind of, taking it day by day.
And you still running lunchtime hours and then evening on Fridays?
Yeah, so we're 10:30 to 2 Monday through Friday. And then we reopen 5 to 7 for dinner time. And then Saturday 11 to 2. Friday evenings, they've been hit or miss, so we'll kind of play them out and see what happens with them.
I'm assuming you get a big crowd from Cummins and school kids and stuff like that, I imagine.
Not as many school kids, but, Cummins Tech Center's right there, so that's, a bulk of our lunch business. Starting to pick up, we've had a few students come in. We just want to serve good barbecue.
Right.
We want to serve, we want you to come and just enjoy, what we've done. And I don't think there's anywhere around here that, I don't know, I don't want to sound like I'm bad-mouthing or anything, because I'm not, but, I know my passion, it started in it started with barbecue, and I went, all over cooking and learning how to cook and investing time and, money and miles, to get where I am. So I don't think
you paid your dues.
Yeah, I don't think places around here have done that as much as I have. Well, that doesn't really mean anything to to people.
Right.
But as far as I'm concerned, I know we put out a really good product.
I got a test for that because I don't think there's anything I haven't tried yet. Something else too, not knocking the first restaurant, but a lot of barbecue restaurants that I've went to, like in Tennessee, like Del Hollow Barbecue, down in Del Hollow, it's right on Del Hollow Lake. Others, smaller barbecue places, Peg Leg Porker, that guy's won competitions. I've seen this, things, statues or trophies or whatever you want to call it in the inside. They're smaller. They're not dressed up like, that restaurant Franklin was cool with the opening,
it was awesome, but it was too much.
But it didn't feel like a barbecue restaurant. You know what I mean? It just felt like a restaurant.
The deal up there was it started out as a barbecue restaurant, and then it just became everything but, it went from barbecue as 90% of the menu to barbecue as 25% of the menu.
Right.
And, it wasn't fun. It was just a massive undertaking. It was 200 and some seats plus the brewery plus everything else. There towards the end, I was just I don't want to do this. Because I lost, it was such a big operation. I lost that personal touch of here in at the Hope, 300 Hope location, I see and touch every plate that goes out, so I can be okay, that doesn't look good. Let's, recut it or, whatever. And up there, I just couldn't because I had 6 employees, on the line on a busy, Friday night,
Yeah. And then, like you said, when barbecue's 25% of it and you got burgers and whatever else, it's then you can't really hone your craft because you're having to do everything
else. And then having that many employees and everything, I went from being a pit master to being a manager. And, then it was I had to rely on the person who was doing the barbecue that day to make sure they pulled it at the right time, to make sure it was done, to make sure, ribs got on so they would be done for dinner. And, it just, I'd rather, it sounds bad, but I'd rather, have control over that so I know it's done. Like now I got Nick. He was with me up there.
Mm-hmm.
He's been with me since, probably day 3 down here.
Yeah.
And, he's learned. I've worked with him, 4 years on barbecue.
Mm-hmm.
He's getting to the point now to where he knows, he can do it.
You can trust him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to put a link to the Big JT's Barbecue on my Basement Banter page. And so everybody, if they're not aware, don't know where it's at, and they want to check out the product, they can. I know you got other things to do. I'm sure Lisa's probably waiting on you, so I won't keep you much longer. I appreciate you coming on.
Not a problem.
Hopefully I'll have this uploaded tonight, if not tomorrow morning. And you guys go check out his restaurant. I don't know, maybe some old wrestling videos on YouTube of you too. I don't know.
I don't know if there is or not. I haven't looked. I'll have to do that. I'll have to look and see if there's any on there.
I know there's some with Chris.
Yeah.
Because I've seen, he wrestled at Merge a few times. He may still, I'm not sure, but I've seen some of his, uploaded. And obviously, it's good for that he's still involved, and it's probably good for the promotion, especially for the younger guys.
Yeah.
At one point, everybody's starting out, and they need that advice. And
right.
Whatnot, so, all right, Jimmy, I appreciate it, brother.
We'll do one more real quick thing. So, for a bonus for the listeners, if you've made it through all this, if you come in anytime in the next 2 weeks, just say you heard us on Basement Banter, and we'll give you 10% off your order.
Hear that, folks? 10% off your order. Mention the podcast. Everybody have a good day, and share it.